Let's dive in. Get your pencils and stuff handy, because there's a couple of things. You know me, I love for you to just take a couple notes, because even if you don't ever take them home, I think it registers a little more with your brain if you take the time to take some notes and actually physically write while we're doing it. So I guess here's my question, just kind of right out of the chute. It's a little bit odd to start with. How many of us in this group, I'm just curious, how many of us in here are parents? Or have ever had parents? Raise them high. Okay, that's pretty much all of us. At least I hope so. Here's where we're going this month. A lot of this month kind of came from the whole idea of going with trust as a theme came from a sermon that I heard last summer. And I was just, it was really, really well done, and I was really excited about it. But you know, the picture of, and I think we got a picture here, as far as the parents thing go, you know, when we toss a child into the air, how many of us haven't had this experience again, either as a parent or remember way back when you were a kid, you know, running up to your dad particularly, you know, Daddy, toss me in the air, and you know, you do the whole toss in the air thing, and they giggle and laugh, and it's a great time and great bonding experience. But you know what? It only takes the one time that you miss, that game never happens again. And so it's about trust. And last week with Kevin, we talked a lot about some awesome stuff, and I have a sneaky suspicion we're probably going to come back to the vertical trust between us trusting God, and what does that mean for us? How many of us, again, show me real quick, how many of us were at Vermeer last week? Most of us, good share of us anyway. And so that was an awesome week, and what we're called to do out of our trust for God, and what that looks like. And I'm here today, we're going to talk a little bit more about the horizontal, the trust factor between men, between Christians, between those of us that we walk with in our circle of influence. And wouldn't you agree that trust matters? I mean, if you think about trust, and again, this speaker this summer he's actually an ordained minister, but now he's kind of gone to the corporate world, and he travels around, and he talks about in the corporate world that really trust is the most expensive thing you cannot have. I don't care whether you're talking about in a marriage, I don't care whether you're talking about at a business level, I don't know, any relationship, if that's not true, just ask Tiger Woods. I mean, his world, financially and family-wise, came to a crumbling halt because of a severe breach of trust. Or how about Lance Armstrong? Another one. There are two well-known world figures, because wouldn't you agree, and I'm going to have Kyle throw some, we all have different pictures that kind of come to mind when it comes to trust. Different relationships create different things as far as what that might be. Whether that's in the medical field, we trust that the doctor knows what he's doing, but he's also going to give us the right treatment. We trust, yesterday, went and got my hair cut. We trust that barber is going to do what he's supposed to do, you know, cut your hair and not give you a mohawk. We trust our spouses. We trust, in my world, it's all built on whether somebody trusts me. Let's just look at the elephant in the room. Used car salesman, that's a tough gig to fight. It's just part of the deal, because everybody is not quite sure whether they can trust me as a used car salesman. So that's the number one thing that I have to gain and earn in my world, is somebody's trust. Here's my very quick definition of trust. Overly simplified, something that I think you could probably remember, and it's a confident belief in. So trust to me is a confident belief in blank. In me as a car salesman, in me as a husband, in me that my word is good. That's what trust is. David Horsager, the guy that I was talking about, referring to, that came and spoke, he wrote a book called The Trust Edge. Some of the different elements that I refer to tonight are going to come from him. This is an interesting quote that he had in his book. Just listen to this. It's going to come too fast to write down. Trust is the natural result of thousands of tiny actions, words, thoughts, intentions. It doesn't happen by accident, nor does it happen all at once. And if you think about the Bible, guys, the Bible is literally filled with stories and truths about how we can trust God. Whether it's Daniel trusting God in the lion's den, to David trusting God, to you can just go right on down the, Noah trusting that, boy, what God has been saying is true, to, if you go to, write this one down, Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Here's what it says. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Or in the New Testament, Romans 10 verse 11 says this, he who trusts in the Lord will not be put to shame. So tonight, one of the things that I want us to kind of wrestle with and talk about is how do we as men, how do we as vital men become trustworthy? And maybe taking that a step further and maybe to a different level of depth, because this isn't a corporate meeting about how we can just be better guys. How do we honor God? By being most trustworthy. So here's a slide that I came up with. Trust, how does it affect our witness, and how does it affect our walk? Particularly with other brothers and or sisters or the people that are in our sphere of influence. And I'm going to jump real quickly to, there's the 8 pillars of trust, and I'm just going to kind of run through these real quickly. You might just jot the words down. They all start with C, so hopefully you'll be able to remember. The first one's consistency. And we're going to come back and bounce into a couple of these a little bit deeper. But consistency, guys, is doing the little things every time. Because it's a grouping of little things that make up the big things. Second one is clarity. People trust the clear and mistrust or distrust the ambiguous. And again, if you think in every situation, in every relationship, in every dealing you might have, these are all going to come true. Third one is compassion. Think beyond yourself. Never underestimate the power of sincerely caring. When you have that element about you, people will trust you. Character. Do what is right over what is easy. Character is a mix of 2 things. One is integrity, which means being the same from beliefs to words to action. The other is moral character. Take the high road in every interaction. The 5th one is contribution. Few things build trust quicker than actual results. Be a contributor, one who delivers real results. Competency. Staying fresh, relevant, capable builds trust. I think that's one of the huge parts of what I think is a fringe benefit of us getting together. Diving into the Word, studying that, because I think it keeps us fresh and relevant, and we are, as far as our walk in life, and how is that all relevant, it keeps us there rather than just kind of showing up. Connection is the 7th one. People want to follow and be around friends. People become friends when they build connections. Here's the simple formula. Ask questions, listen. All relationships are built by establishing genuine connection. Then the last one, number 8, is commitment. For a few moments, I just want to dive into a couple of these. The first one being consistency, and I want to just kind of see once, because really, the author of the book says that you really need all 8 of those in each and every situation, because when one fails, you lose your element of trust. So you really need all 8 of these, but I want to just look particularly at 3. The first one is consistency. Isn't it true, guys, that we trust sameness? Brilliance is interesting, but we really trust the people who are consistent with their actions. And so when you think about your interaction with people at work, in your family, any of those kind of things, it's when you're consistent with your actions that you build that consistency. Here's an interesting thing. In the business world, don't we trust McDonald's? We don't really even like it, but we trust them. I mean, because I've had the opportunity to eat at a McDonald's in Hong Kong, just like some of you, to in the Deep South, to in Yucatan, to in Pella, Iowa. The burgers are all the same. The menu is basically the same. You know right where the malt machine is always right where it always is. I mean, you can walk into every McDonald's and you pretty much know exactly where it is. You may not like it, but there is a consistency about it that you can count on. Hebrews 11, we're all fairly familiar with it. That's kind of the whole Hall of Fame chapter about those men and the women who, through the history of God's people, lived by faith. So how did they do that? Turn with me real quick to Hebrews 12. I think there's an answer there for us that I would like to just spend a minute, and we're going to read that together. Hebrews 12, and we're going to look at verses 1 through 3. And I'll read them here, just give you a second to get to that point. I apologize, I don't have a page number. It's toward the latter part of the New Testament. 1193, if you're in one of the Bibles that the church has here. Starting at verse 1, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Here's the key part of it. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary or lose heart. How do we get a consistency to our life, guys? We've said it multiple times. This is maybe just saying the same thing, a little bit different. Fix your eyes. Notice it did not say glance or occasionally or when you're in a deep world of hurt. It says fix your eyes on Jesus. Consistent. And we've all heard of different examples of just in life how that is true. If they're using the analogy in Hebrews of running the race, and I'm not a track guy and certainly not a track coach, but I have been to enough meets and I have seen enough races, at least at the high school level, because I think as you progress up to the little higher levels, you don't necessarily see that. I have seen a lot of people that were ahead with about 40 meters to go in the race, looking behind them, and at that time getting past. Or how many of you know, we all do, when I'm mowing the back edge of my lot, if I want to keep that line fairly straight, I'm not necessarily just looking 3 feet in front of my mower. I'm looking at whether it's a tree or whether that stake, and I'm looking out ahead. Another great example, I just ran across this afternoon kind of poking around. We've all probably either seen the movie or some of us maybe were even alive and experienced it in first person, the whole Apollo 13. When they had 39 seconds during their flight when things were going a little bit nasty, 39 seconds, they basically had to turn off their computer board and fly their ship manually. How'd they do it? How did they stay on course? They knew, Jim Lovell, the captain, knew that if he kept the Earth, their target, at a certain place in the window of their capsule, and it didn't move from that spot, if they kept their eyes while they were steering on that, they would maintain their course. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. So here's the first point. The only way to have consistency in life, guys, nothing real rocket science here, but how many of us don't struggle with this? Focus on Jesus. To finish the race that we've been called, fix our eyes. Here's what I can tell you about my life. When I am focused on me, my life, my struggles, my thoughts, my circumstances, there's not much peace in my life. But when I turn my eyes to Jesus, kind of like that old hymn, turn your eyes toward Jesus and the things of this world will grow strangely dim. When I do that, when I focus, like the last time I spoke, on how great his love is, the power of his grace, how he reveals himself, how he's acted in my life and in the lives of the people that I love and around me. When I focus on how I can trust Jesus, that's when true peace comes. So the first pillar, if you will, is consistency. Focus our eyes on Jesus. The second one is character. For those of you who are a part of Third Church, you maybe have heard this story from our pastor, Kevin Corver. It's an interesting one because character really isn't the definition of character by some degree. It's who are you when nobody's looking. Basically, doesn't that tell our true colors, our true character? So Kevin always tells this great story back when he was in California, to where, craziness of their traffic, and I'm really shortening this story, but you'll get the gist of it, how in the midst of a traffic jam, lots of sort of thing, he did something he maybe shouldn't have, or if I remember the story right, but long story short, here comes a guy that he maybe, with a little bit of road rage, comes by and flips Kevin off, until he was about halfway through the motion and realized that that was his own pastor that he was flipping off. Oops is right. So, 1 Corinthians 11, verse 1. Jot that down and go back to it and ponder it. Paul says, "Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ." Here's my question to us tonight. What would happen if several, if not all the men in this group here would say that exact same thing? Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. Not in an arrogant way, but in a confident way. But here's the deal. You've got to have the character to back it up. When people that know you, you know what the number one, you've probably seen some of the same things that I see. You know what the number one, and there's unfortunately a lot of truth to this, the number one reason why people who don't believe in Jesus, who don't want anything to do with the church, it's because when they look at us, they're going, "You're a hypocrite. I know how you do business. I know how you treat your wife. I know what you sit and brag about what you've done on your taxes or not done on your taxes. I know the way you talk when we're in the locker room. I know." And they're going, what you say versus what you profess to believe, how you live, those are not matching up. So how is our character? How do we do that? Here's another verse I want you to write down. 1 Timothy 4, verse 7. In a nutshell, here's what it says. Train yourself to be godly. Last week, Kevin talked about disciples and what that looked like, to follow the master, do what he has done. So how do we do that? We have to be very intentional with our training. We talked about that during our month of Bible study, and what does that mean, and how does that work, and why do we even do that? It doesn't just happen. To develop a godly character, men, you need to be intentional. A, you need to pray that the Holy Spirit works on your heart, but B, you need to train. For a period of my life, not so much anymore, I would teach basketball shooting to young kids. I'd go to camps, I traveled around the country, did some different things. That was a different pay. But you know what? You don't become a great basketball shooter doing it starting the first day of practice in November. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of shots. You don't become a great golfer by just showing up at Chamber of Commerce Day. And the same is true of developing godly character. Gentlemen, we've got to be very intentional. So here's my question. Simplistic as it is, who are you when no one is looking? Is your character becoming more and more like Jesus? And the true test of that is even when no one is looking. Most of us, I think, if we're honest, there would be what I would characterize as a character gap. Who I say I am versus maybe who I am when I'm not looking. How do we close that gap? And I've already hit on both of them. Well, I've hit on one for sure. One is spend time training to develop godly character. And the second one I thought was really interesting, and I think as I listen to and hear some of the different conversations that go on here, but I think even beyond what we do here in the small groups, is that I think as men, we need to continue to be transparent about our shortcomings. If we admit to each other and confess to God that, you know what, I don't have this all figured out, that's part of where the Pharisees, what made them the problem that they had. They thought they were perfect, and they were quick to let everybody know, at least in their opinion, that they were perfect and had it all figured out. So I think those two are part of the formula to developing godly character, is spend time training, but also be transparent enough to know that we need the power of the Spirit to bring something to us. And the third is commitment. Being fully committed to Christ. A couple of stories that I think will bring that point home. One, there's a story about in Haiti where a Haitian family or a gentleman wanted to sell his home, and he, through negotiation, the price of the home went from $2,000 down to $1,000. And when the deal was made, he had one stipulation: that after the sale and after this new family were to take ownership, the original owner had one stipulation, and that was that he maintained ownership of just one single nail that was above the door, the front door. Kind of odd. A few years down the road, he actually wanted to buy the home back, but the person who had bought it from him refused. So because he had ownership of the one nail, you know what he did? He hung a dead dog carcass on that nail. I think you know where this story's going. It didn't take long for that family to realize they had problems. That one uncommitted area of the house caused that family huge problems to the point where they eventually did have to sell. You know what? The same is true of us. The same is true of me. I know that for a fact. Some of us in our lives, we leave just one area of our life. I don't know what that might be. But that one area that's uncommitted to Christ, and the devil's got his foothold. So what is that? I think we need to face up to that. That might be where some of our discussion goes tonight. That may be where part of your prayer time goes in the next few days. Do some soul searching. Have you totally committed? There's another story, depending on where you read. Some of it is legend, some of it is partially true, but I think it does make the good point, and some of you maybe have already heard it. 1519, there is a conqueror by the name of Hernando Cortez. And he was actually going to sail from Cuba, the beaches of Cuba, to the Yucatan Peninsula. And why he did this was because back in 1519 there was a treasure beyond treasure. It was known around the world with jewels and gold and everything that one could imagine that was on this Yucatan Peninsula. And so the deal was, or the problem was, is that for 600 years many conquerors had tried to go to this peninsula and failed. They'd tried and failed. They'd tried and failed. So when he goes and starts seeking an army, you know, they're pretty much going on a death mission. So here goes Cortez. He's got 600 men. He's got 16 horses and 11 boats. They land on the Yucatan Peninsula. And unlike others who had gone before him, his strategy was a little bit different. He got the troops all onto the shore, gathered them in, and as a coach, I could just about picture this. 600 men, he was going to have the pregame talk. They didn't go in with guns, well, I guess it wouldn't be guns, with whatever armor and stuff they used. They didn't go in with that blazing. Here were his instructions. Burn the boats. Gentlemen, if we're going to go home, we're going to go home in their boats, or we're not going at all. A different level of commitment. Did not leave himself or his 600 men and out. And so for the first time in 600 years, Cortez and his men did in fact capture the peninsula, capture the treasure. So here's my question, gentlemen. What are your boats? I know what mine are. I've shared some of them with you over the last couple of years. What are you and I holding on to that we haven't given over completely to Jesus? So tonight we've highlighted 3 of the different pillars. When people see, so if you remember, trust, how is our witness, how is our walk? When people see consistently, gentlemen, they will see that your eyes are in fact fixed on Jesus. They will see and they'll know your character. They'll know that you are who you say you are, even when nobody is looking. And they'll know, they may not verbalize it, but they will sense and see in you that you're becoming more and more like Jesus. And committed. I know a lot of you are at that point. And I celebrate the fact that you have truly sold out to Jesus, that you've burned your boat, that you've given up, you just know that your job and this and that and all the other stuff that the world says are the answers, you have come to the realization that Jesus is your only answer. And you're forging forging forward. When those things happen, guys, that's when trust starts to happen. That's when we can have an effect on our witness. That's when we can have an effect when we walk with, whether it's through joy or through sorrow, whether that's through pain or whether that's through the positive sides of life. When we trust each other, those things are possible. But when we don't trust each other as men, I think you could just testify to that sitting here at your table. If you don't trust, nothing happens. But the best part about that, when we become more and more trustworthy, really why we're here on earth also starts to happen. Honor to our God and to our Savior is brought. So what I'm going to have us do, it's a little bit different. We got some generalized questions, but the very last question, if you look on there, and I'm going to steal somebody's sheet here. It's a little bit different. I think, Kyle, at some point, what I've asked you to consider, guys, and I'm just going to read through the part so I want you to make sure, table leaders, that we kind of get to some of this. Because this has been an interesting discussion that I have had in some small groups, and I just felt like, let's not beat around the bush, let's just go there together. So it's the one that says, spend some time searching Scripture together and discussing what does it look like, or how should we rebuke sin in a brother's life. What does that look like? Is that possible without trust being developed? What is rebuking versus judging? And I've got a whole bunch of different verses up there that I'd like you to just kind of read through, study, whatever that maybe looks like, jot some of those down, go back to them, because I think as Christian brothers, when we talk about iron sharpening iron, when we talk about taking this to a different level, can we get past the pussyfooting around, if I can just be blunt, of when I see a brother that's heading down a road that I know is not God honoring and that he's just blinded for whatever reason? Am I stepping into that, or am I just sticking my head in the sand and hope he figures it out? Do we love each other enough as brothers to do it? How do we do it? Starts with trust. So I want you to kind of make sure that we get to that point. And I'm not sure we're going to come to great answers, but I think we can start our process of discussion. So we'll come back, obviously, at the end of the night and wrap things up. But before we do that, whoever was the introducer of the night forgot to pray. So I'm going to take a moment and have us pray corporately, that as you move into our time of discussion, that's a blessing to you as well. Jesus, I just thank you for tonight. I thank you for these men. I thank you for their willingness to come and learn and to just want to hear, and they're hungry for you. Father, I just pray that your Spirit will be present in a mighty and powerful way tonight as brothers in love, as they go through and talk about trust. And what does that mean as we witness to the unbelievers in our circle, but also what does it mean as we walk together as brothers and with other fellow Christians? Father, I just pray that your truth will come forth and that we will leave here as vital men that can be a vital part of your kingdom. I just thank you for tonight, and we just pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. So thank you, gentlemen. I will see you here in a few short moments.